Hi guys, so here we are with the Q&A for the webinar that we had with Tony Hayes last night. So thank you very much, Tony, for hosting that. Very good of you. And now I'll get stuck into those questions that people asked and see if we can give you some meaningful answers. Okay, so first question, how often do you recommend we post to Google every week? So Google my business posts. I would recommend you do it 2 to 4 times a week if possible. It's a good idea to target single keywords as well in bursts. That's what I found is the most effective way of doing it, and if possible send traffic to those posts. So I hope that answers that. Where do those keywords list on the right hand side come from? I think we answered that question on the Webby, but I'll confirm that again. It's Keywords Everywhere. That's a Chrome extension. Keywords Everywhere, free extension, very useful tool. What about GeoGenius sites? Do they still work as before? So GeoGenius is a software which I had a little bit of input into a couple of years ago. Yes, they do still work. You can build the same sorts of sites manually. They're basically a geo-themed Google site. That's it basically, but you put a lot of emphasis on the geographic aspect of the site. But yes, they absolutely do still work. What's your thought on using press releases for GMB ranking? Yeah, we touched on this last night, but I will just answer the question again in case it was forgotten or it was missed. The answer is yes, definitely they work really well. Tony put that link in there for that Yahoo and Google News offer for $139, which is a great deal. I've actually gone through that and I'm going to be using it myself actually. So yeah, press releases work really well. Again, if you can send a little bit of traffic over the best networks that pick up the press release, try and send a little bit of traffic over there. But make sure that you're using a good service. Don't bother with free services and don't bother with the really cheap ones, because generally speaking you get what you pay for, and there are some good deals out there, but if you're going to go really cheap, you're probably going to find that it's just a bunch of PBNs really that it just syndicates to, and you're not going to get anything from that. What would you recommend to optimize the listing? Okay, this is too broad really to answer. The only thing I would say is make sure that your category is the appropriate one. Do your keyword research on that. Make sure that your title is branded. I wouldn't go with spammy. It's okay to put keywords in a title if it's meaningful, like Bob's Plumbing, you know, or a branded name and then air conditioning or something like that. You know, that's fine to include a keyword in there if it looks natural, but don't spam it. And basically build out the whole listing. Make sure that you add as much content to the listing as you can. Okay, do optimize your photos in GMB with locations info. Yes, I do, and I would recommend that you do it. You can actually put schema. Probably giving a bit too much away here. You can actually put schema into the comments section as well, and Google will read it. So that's something that you might want to consider. So if it was, say, a photo of a product, you could put product schema into the image. Google actually are reading images now. By that I mean not just reading the metadata, but actually reading the image. So bear that in mind too. That's you know, this is going to be the upcoming thing, is using images in a different way, not just with the metadata, but with the actual image itself. How soon to an AI SEO tool? Probably not soon. There's so many different angles to this that it would be difficult to. Yeah, it would be difficult to put it into a tool, really. There are tools you can use to help you, but not one single tool that would do all this, really. How time consuming is it to get the results that you had in your demo for real estate agents? I've never tried it with real estate agents, to be honest. That's one of the niches. We've tried it in 27 different niches. And it's worked to varying degrees. I mean, some seem to be better than others, but that may just be the individual GMBs that we've used, so I can't say for sure. But real estate agents wasn't one of the ones that we used, so I can't specifically comment on them. But the actual process itself isn't very time consuming, really. Certainly not when you consider the results that you can get. Do you think it's better to link your CID, or is it better to link to your CID GMP? I'm not sure what you mean by that. GMP address, or the short link in Google. Okay, right, I get the gist of what you're saying here. And i.e. will it pass link use? Either will pass use, okay, because you're linking from Google to Google, so even if it were a 302, Google will typically follow them. But the CID is good. It's a powerful link. The problem is you don't want to abuse it. Don't overuse it. So I definitely wouldn't use the CID, for example, in a site in your citations. Like if you were going to go and build 200 or 300 citations, don't use the CID link. That's probably likely to get you into trouble. Same with press releases. Don't go and use the CID link in a press release. I've never tested it in a press release. I have with citations. In a press release, though, I can only conclude that it would probably give you the same effect, that it would be overkill, too much. It doesn't look natural. But generally speaking, it's good to use, but sparingly. Can this be done to get GMB listings for towns where they're not based? Yeah, we touched on this. Inside the course, there's 3 or 4, I can't remember exactly how many, but 3 or 4 techniques that you can use for mitigating the proximity filter in GMB. And so, yes, you can. We've had some of our mastermind students actually get amazing results very, very quickly by using some of these methods, where you can rank in neighboring suburbs, towns, to where your listing resides. So certainly, yeah, that can be done, no question. Can you get rank in the maps area without a physical address for the business? Yes, I mean, this is how more or less all the lead gen guys, including myself, are doing it. We have a you actually have a physical address, but it's not a real, well, it is a real address, but it's not our address. So we just use addresses, and then we will typically hide the address. So the answer is yes. You don't have to reside at the address where you put a listing. There are ways around that, and there are vendors that will actually be able to do that for you. I will post a resource for that. Actually, I'll make sure that that Tony has a resource that you can actually access to get very good prices on GMB listings, and the person that does them is very, very clued up. Okay, so next question. I see from another developer that driving directions are important. Does the course cover setting up driving directions? It does in one form, okay? What we don't cover is getting driving directions maps and embedding them. That's really easy. I actually showed you that in the webinar. Really, really easy to do. I actually have a software that you can do that with as well. If anyone's interested, we might possibly look at rolling out that software again. At the moment, it's not available, but if anyone's interested in that, if we get enough people asking, then we could actually make that available, which makes it really, really easy. But yeah, there is one method, very, very powerful way of using driving directions maps in the course. What about expired domains? We don't touch on that. It's not something that you have to do. It can be useful, but it's not, again, it's fairly mainstream stuff. It's not, what I've done with this course is I've just added stuff to the course that is content that you won't typically find anywhere else. Okay, so anything that's more mainstream that you could get the information online, or you could find out from a free resource, I haven't included. And one of the places I would recommend, guys, is Chaz at Web20 Ranker. He's a very knowledgeable guy, and he's got a lot of free resources on his website and YouTube channel. So Web20 Ranker, they're a good first stop for getting all of the fundamentals under your belt, but of course they don't go into any of this kind of stuff. You typically aren't going to find anybody talking about the kind of stuff that's in this course, because either they don't know it, or if they do, there are very few people that do, and the ones that do just do not give it away. They do not teach it. Okay, so what price ranges are you charging clients to get their GMBs ranked on page 1? We don't offer a service. I don't typically do. I've got a few clients, but I don't typically do client work, unfortunately. Is optimizing pictures for GMB picture and post worth doing? So we touched on this before. Yes, they do. They do actually strip the metadata when if you download the image again, you'll find the metadata's gone. But I have noticed a difference. Okay, so the only thing we conclude, as we actually don't know, but the only thing we conclude is that Google certainly reads it before it's stripped, and they do, whether they do anything with it, who knows? But I've definitely seen that it makes a difference. In situations where I've done tests where I've done it and then had a very, very similar listing where I haven't done it. Okay, what about the frequency of GMB posts? We covered that before, 2 to 4 times a week. I read about some issues with creating a short name in a GMB list, which results in the GMB list not showing and then coming back when they got rid of it. Yes, I saw the same post actually in one of the Facebook groups. Any idea if it's relatively safe to do that now? I would say not just at the minute. Google have got major problems. This really dates back to a couple of months back, or even 3 months ago, when they completely dismantled the old classic dashboard. They broke a lot of code, and that together with their anti-spam, their really aggressive anti-spam campaign, there's a lot of broken stuff that Google are fixing. So I would be very careful about these things. I didn't really see much I've got to be honest, I didn't really see much benefit to that short name, but yeah, I don't think it's going to help you with ranking, but if it's something you particularly want, if you've got any junk GMBs that you wanted to just have a play with, you could certainly try that. What URL for GMB website if we have another website already? I'm not really following what you mean there. What URL for GMB website if we have another website already? Well, what I would do if I'm understanding the question right, what I would do is I would choose a URL for my GMB website which contained the keyword or my primary keyword or category that I wanted to rank for. Okay, because you can choose whatever you want. If it's available, you can have it. Okay, and it's got nothing to do with like .com or .co or anything. It's a .business website, so whatever you put in that slug, if it's available, if no other .business website has it, you can have it. Real estate properties can be considered product and input as such in the GMB. If you're selling, if you were selling houses, then they could be considered product. If you were selling, if you were renting them, that would be a service. So, but yeah, if you're actually selling the real estate, if you were selling your service, if you're selling yourself as a real estate agent, that would be a service. But if you're talking about the actual property that's up for sale, then that could be considered a product. Yeah. So do you set up a Google Maps ad for traffic? I don't. You can. That's not a bad thing to do. It's certainly going to help you. Facebook too, you can use. We have traffic robots that we use that we've built in-house, taken us a long time and a lot of money to build those. So that's what we personally use. But certainly you can use. We show you in the course a few things that you can use a couple of strategies for sending traffic, but it's paid advertising is certainly one of those options. Nothing on expired domains and pointing, not in this course, no, because you can find that information everywhere. Like Tony also has a couple of good products on that, tools that you can use for helping you with that stuff too. But finding information on that, it's out there already. So as I said before, I just wanted to really concentrate on stuff that no one's talking about in this course. Okay, what tool do you recommend for optimizing photos? There's two I'd recommend. Obviously, one is Lloyd Farrell's tool, that's Mass Optimizer. Certainly, if you're doing a large number of photos, that's the only tool you should be using. And it also gives you the option of choosing a mobile phone that you can input, and that will tell Google what phone was used to take the picture, and also what time the picture was taken, etc., etc. I also use another tool if I'm only doing one or two. It's not for doing bulk stuff, but that's called Image Geotagger by Matt Versteeg, and that's a handy tool if you're only doing maybe up to half a dozen or so, or maybe up to 10 images. Then that can be a handy quick way. So I always have both those tools ready to go so that I can use either of them depending on what application suits. Okay, do you need to change the IP address to use Location Guard on desktop? No, if all you're using it for is to pull in a search, so you're just trying to manipulate the geolocation origin of the search so that you can manipulate exactly what you're going to see in terms of results, then absolutely not. You don't need to use a different IP. You're not doing anything wrong there. All that's doing is actually changing the geo coordinates in Chrome sensor. Okay, but it's doing it in a handy way because it's a easy to use plugin extension. What's the name of Lloyd's software? It's Mass Optimizer. Okay, so it's the Mass Optimizer image optimizing software. That's Lloyd Farrell's software. What are your thoughts on putting custom text over a stock photo? Do brand building and get around Google seeing it as a stock photo. It won't stop Google seeing it as a stock photo. If you look at Google Lens, I mentioned this on the webinar, Google Lens now has become very, very good at identifying images. You can even carve an image up into little pieces, and if each of those pieces is sufficiently large, Google will recognize exactly what the source of each of those pictures was. Okay, I actually did a test the other week. I had my logo, just the logo, no text on it, and I pointed the lens at the logo and immediately directed me to my GMB. What have you found to be the best way to market rankings, GMB as a service? Pay up front versus payment after page one ranking. I would never do payment after page one ranking. Because you can never guarantee anything with Google, because it all depends on the competition. It depends on one thing you don't ever know is what's the spam score of their listing, what's been done to it. It might be horrible. It's really difficult to know. So I would never guarantee rankings. That's a sure way to find yourself with a small bank account. So if you're going to do it as a service, then you want to be either some kind of upfront fee for setting everything up and then a monthly recurring. I mean, you could say, right, the monthly recurring will start when you see some movement. That's up to you. But I personally, I convince them to, the few clients I've got, I would convince them to use me, and then I would expect them to trust that I can get the job done for them. Is phone verification providing GMBs as a consultant agency and therefore not owning the asset that I am developing? How do you not get fired after you've ranked it? Oh, okay, I see what you mean. I'm not sure what the first bit means. It is phone verification. Yeah, okay, so I get what you mean. Yeah, this is going to become an increasing problem, particularly with GMB, because it's all going entity based. So once these are ranked, there's not that much maintenance. A little bit of traffic and doing posts pretty much is it. So yeah, that is a bit of a problem, that you could find yourself getting fired. Probably one of the ways you could get around that, of course, is to build some satellite GMBs for them that you absolutely control. Okay, and then if they didn't pay you, you can change the phone numbers on them so they're no longer getting the calls. So if you did it as a lead gen, you can absolutely control whether they get the calls at the end of the day. The rankings won't change, but you could go in there and you could rebrand, or you could retheme it a little bit. You've got to be a little bit careful with the way things are at the moment, but you could retheme it, change the phone number, and then send that traffic to a different company. How does it work for restaurants? Yeah, restaurants are one of the niches that we actually tried out of the 27, and we got some pretty good results. How time consuming is it to learn and get the results that you had in the demo for a real estate agent? Again, I didn't try on real estate agents, so I can't say specifically, but yeah, the methods aren't overly time consuming. Certainly not that time consuming to learn. They're not overly technical. Some of the background to it, the concepts that underline it are fairly technical. Well, they are very technical, but the actual methods that we teach are not difficult to understand. It may take longer to understand why it works, but it doesn't take long to actually understand how to do it. Okay, now, so we're on to the last few questions here. So does this work on new GMBs or existing ones? Yeah, both. I mean, I'm not going to tell you it works on every single listing with every single keyword. It doesn't. Okay, we found roughly about 60 or so % of the keywords that we target, we get the results for. Can you comment on the success of real estate and personal injury lawyer niches for fast ranking? Neither of those two were niches that we actually tried out of our 27, but we did get fairly consistent results over the 27. So by that I mean that there weren't any niches that it absolutely didn't work in. Some results were better than others, but as I said before, that may have just been the individual GMBs that we were trying, not necessarily the niche. What is the red-green software? Oh, okay, so that is, there's a couple of these on the market. Okay, that particular one is a product that we own, but it's all it is a ranking software that actually uses Google's Maps API to pull the information, the ranking information from Google Maps. Okay, so it's very, very similar to Local Falcon. That's another one. Viking, which is Mark Luckenbau's tool. I believe Jordan Pierce over at GMB Academy, he's about to release a tool as well. So there's a few of these around. Do you offer done-for-you GMB services? No, at the moment we don't. Basically, we're lead gen people. Okay, we're doing this. We actually do this for ourselves. So we're using these methods in our own business. That's primarily what we're doing. So it's not, we don't offer this as a service. Is there a way of setting up lead generation strategies with MAP? Absolutely, that's what we do. So yes, is the answer to that one. Yeah, what you would need to do is either learn or buy a method for putting the GMBs up yourself, or you would buy them, and then you rank them, create the leads, you get the traffic, create the leads and sell them. Is it better to charge a monthly or a pay per call? I like pay per call personally. That's the lead gen model. That's my preferred method, because that way, to me, that's very clean. You typically don't get any resistance to selling that to companies, because it's very, very clear cut. If we don't get calls, we don't pay. Okay, so I prefer that model myself. And if you know how to rank them, you control the asset. You're never in a position where the client can fire you. I mean, if they don't want to receive the leads anymore, that's fine. You find someone else that does. So that's my preferred business model. It works really well. But you can use this for both. Okay, and you can use the fast ranking method as a means of attracting clients in both niches. You can attract them in lead gen, because you can say, look what we can do in the ranking, which will lead to phone calls for you. Okay, it works really well. So that's just a statement. The next one: does the course cover any rank and rent ideas? It doesn't, no, because it's about ranking. Okay, the course is a course on hacks on how to actually rank GMBs. Okay, you mentioned vendors who can create fake GMB locations. Can you provide their contact? Yes, I will make sure that there's the details of the vendor that actually, we build some ourselves, but I do use this guy too. What's the free proprietary tool for ranking quicker for unlimited keywords? The tool that we're offering as a bonus is GMB Hunter. That's not a ranking tool. What that does is Lloyd could tell you more about that, but basically it goes and it finds the listings that you might want to target, the businesses that you might want to target. Would you have a monthly plan? At the moment, not, but we're discussing that. So watch this space, maybe. Are updates included with the course since Google just said yes? We're not the kind of people that just sell you something, then move on and leave you high and dry. As new techniques are uncovered, as we either uncover them or discover them, we will actually add them to the course. Okay, so yeah, the course will grow over time. I'm not going to give a commitment as to how often it's going to be updated, like, oh, there's going to be one video every 2 weeks or whatever, because it literally will be according to what we discover. So you might find in 1 week we add 3 videos, and then there may be nothing for another month. It just depends on what we're discovering, okay? Because unless it's a really good and worthwhile discovery, it's not going to find its way into that course. So what are we looking at next? Somebody is offering press releases. Does GMB Hacks use software to do the work or manually? We use software to send traffic, okay, but you don't have to. All of the techniques that are in that course can be done manually. Okay, now obviously if you want to scale, you're either going to have to use VAs or you're going to have to utilize some form of software to do certain parts of it. But it all can be done manually. Okay, so it's not something that you're going to have to go out and buy another tool in order to be able to do what's in that course. Can you recommend a way to redirect rankings from one business to another in the same niche? You really can't do that in GMB, unfortunately. In the GMB Hacks page, what's the free proprietary tool for ranking quick? That's one that has been asked up there twice. There isn't one. I don't know where that came from, the idea that we've got a tool for ranking. There is a tool for finding unclaimed GMBs, or it's finding GMBs in general. It'll tell you the status of them, and it'll give you the contact details of the company. Okay, so that concludes everything, guys. As Tony said earlier, this really can be, I don't like to use the word business in a box because I think it's, maybe a little bit of a hackneyed expression, but this really can be a system that you can apply to rank GMBs in order to drive traffic to them, so that you can turn into either phone calls for your clients or phone calls that you sell as a lead gen. And also the fast ranking method, you can put your own videos together, very much like I did for the demonstration, and you can send those attached to an email, or you can send, I tell you one way that works extremely well is to send SMS messages out to local companies, directing them to the video. Okay, and what you find if you do that, once they watch it, anyone who's not in a coma is going to sit up and take notice of the fact of what they're seeing. But you do have to qualify it, okay? So I would, at the beginning of the video, qualify it by explaining to them what it is that they're seeing. When those pins drop, you've got to explain what it is that they're seeing, what they represent, so that they can understand it. Once they understand it, they're all over it. They can very, very quickly grasp what you're doing and what that could mean to them. You would then obviously yourself go on and explain that too, though. But it's a very, very powerful method for both ranking and client acquisition.